Hey, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to our impromptu live stream. I am Julie Barrett, founder of Conservative Ladies of America and Conservative Ladies of Washington. And I am excited to be joined by my friend Eric Pratt. I say the band is back together. We haven't done one of these in a while, Eric.
No, it has been a long time. I'm excited. Get back into the
Yeah.
groove,
So
like you said.
yeah, exactly. So Eric and I got acquainted 2021, 2022. We were both testifying in the legislature, and we'd see each other in the same committee hearings, and we'd both be testifying on the same bills. And then we connected, I think, on what was probably Twitter still at the time. And we were kind of just like collaborating and working together and, looking at bills and asking, kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, and just can have been working together ever since and been friends. And so we kind of bounce ideas off of each other and like, hey, do you, if you, as we're reading bills, because we're just citizens, just like probably most of the people watching us. And so, getting into these bills and legislation isn't something that like was our career or, something that was a priority in our lives until the laws impacted us and our families. And so kind of learning together and teaching each other together has been really fun. And Eric, I thank you for being in the fight, and I thank you for your friendship and all the value that you have added to my fight and to the Conservative Ladies as an organization.
Yeah.
You've been kind of, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, well, I have to extend that same to you because working together with you has taught me so much about this. I think when we work together, it's probably been some of the moments in time in doing the fighting, I guess the fighting or the testimonies in the legislature that I've learned the most. And
Same.
I've made a lot of mistakes down along the way, but collaborating with you and Conservative Ladies of Washington and the great group has been an invaluable experience that is irreplaceable in a lot of ways, and is pretty much is formative in how I handle things today, really. So many thanks to you and your hard work because it makes us all better.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's definitely night. It's a lonely place, I would say, being in this battle, and so it's been really nice to, have someone that kind of like, I think you and I kind of see things through a similar lens. Due to our experience, both you and I have experience with Washington family court system, in kind of very, very different ways, but similar, but different, but with the government inserting themselves into your family and really having to fight against the state to do what is right for your children. And that was way prior to our experience in the legislature. And so I think we had that kind of that lens going in of the state interfering with the family, and kind of, I think, had a different perspective than maybe some people who haven't had some of those experiences with the court system and the state interfering with your family. And so we kind of connect dots on things that maybe other people wouldn't. I don't know. I kind of think, as a Christian, I think like the Holy Spirit has kind of given me this gift to sort of connect dots and put pieces together that maybe I wouldn't otherwise see. I mean, I have no other explanation for it because I'm not a detailed person, and prior to 2021 and what happened with our daughter, I wasn't digging through these bills. So
No, I 100% agree. I mean, both you and I, it seemed like came into this sort of from the side where I don't know if I think you probably share this, but where the people we run into or deal with on a constant level are politically based, and sort of that's where their foundation of their involvement in legislation and things come from, and which is great for them. There's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of experience there. But I know for me, maybe similar for you, but coming in sideways with personal experience as to the effects of this legislation, and
yeah.
a lot of times the negative effects allow us the ability to see the scaffolding that's being built to shore up, sometimes in a really bad way, some of the things that we've dealt with personally. like you say, with your daughter,
Right.
or through the family courts, or just observing what happens to our communities, our parents, our homes, our ability to do things. And I think the way we've come at this, like I said, kind of from the side, is really, I don't know if it's been a perfect experience, at least not for me, because I know there's
Right.
been a lot of stumbles that I've made along the way, but it's, it's eye opening, and it gives a unique perspective than just the strictly political uh, lens that a lot of people we see in this stuff work with.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point because when you and I really, I wasn't involved in politics or legislation, prior to 2021, and I really didn't know what to expect or what the landscape would be. And so just for people watching, when you go and you testify, if you're on the right, it's primarily going to be lobbyists and policy organizations and people who that's their job to show up and testify. The left is really good at organizing. And so they have like the PTA association has parents that they're pulling to testify. So they're pulling actual citizens. And most of the time, Eric and I would show up and we'd be the only citizens on a lot of bills. You would have some of the, I would say, higher profile bills that more citizens might show up on if it got enough publicity. But for the most part, you don't see a lot of citizens testifying in support, or I should say, in opposition to really bad um, radical left policies. And so that it can be really intimidating because kind of, I'll speak for myself, kind of the vibe that I have always gotten in Washington from not everyone, but from many people, whether they're legislators or they're policy people. It's kind of like, well, if they don't like my take on something, it's not because we just disagree with the position, my position. It's, I don't know how to read the bill. I don't understand the legislation. You don't know how these things work. And so from that regard, fortunately, I'm just a strong-willed, thick-skinned person. And so that kind of just like encouraged me to go full steam ahead. And just for the record, I am now a government and public policy senior at Liberty University with a 4.0. So take your Julie Barrett can't read bills and shove it.
The
Now I'm
tenacity's
actually going to
paying
have like
off.
the paper that says, so when next time somebody tells me I don't know how to read bills.
Now you have some credential behind
Right.
you. Yes.
But that
And
is kind of I feel like as and I know that we've had people on our team who have testified that have gotten um really belittled by Republican legislators. I mean, you expect it from the Democrats, but having the Republicans do it too is just really defeating for citizens. And so I think one of the things we've tried to do as an organization is be that encouragement for people and kind of help thicken their skin and not let those things get to them. I don't know if you experienced any of that. I think they like you better than they like me.
well, I don't know about that. I'm probably just a pain in the butt, so they tolerate me as much as they have to. But I would agree. It's, I mean, anytime, it's all frustrating. I mean, when you want to get in the ear of people you hope are on your side, let's say, for instance, a Republican or a conservative who's sitting in the committee, and you want to get on their side, but at the same time, they're not seeing things through the lens that you are,
Right.
and maybe don't have the same concerns, or maybe, like you said, they have a lobbyist from an industry or something that's in their ear, that's sort of fueling some of the financing for things like campaigns and such, or some other interest. So our voices fall to the wayside, and we have to kind of be pushed. They push us out of the way more so.
Right.
Um, I definitely have experienced a little bit of that. I think that's just the nature of legislation. It's just a dirty business.
Yeah.
I went into this kind of thinking, oh, this is the room of decorum where good sound arguments carry weight, where real rational thought is occurring, when that's not at all the case, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's all backroom dealing. I mean, I'm obviously not in these back rooms, but you can see it on the surface. You can see the
Yep.
effect. And it's backroom dealings. It's a lot of handshakes that are occurring outside the public eye. and how do we get around that? And so you and I injecting ourselves into it is absolutely 100% necessary, but it's a pain in the ass for that process. So I think it's awesome no matter who we frustrate, whether it be
Yeah,
conservatives or Democrats, because that's what the citizens should be doing in these
right.
cases. We should be upsetting that purpose. And if if that rubs a few people wrong who we are supposed to be allies with, quote unquote allies with, I mean that's just the nature of the beast. And it
Yeah.
shows you're doing something right, in my opinion. um,
I agree.
and
I think, if they're trying to silence you or discredit you, um, I think it shows a lot that you're exposing, some
yeah,
of the truth that's there. And um, that kind of is a good segue into the vaccine framework. I'm going to emphasize framework. I did not say mandate. There is no mandate yet. People are really good at just like not like reading the whole thing and processing. And I get it. Like with social media, it's so easy to just grab the sound bite and just run with it. But um, this this is one of those things where they strategically put things together, and they don't want people to figure out what they're doing until it's all said and done, right? They do these little pieces that one piece by itself isn't really a big deal. But and this is what you and I have gotten really good at, I would say, is okay, but how does this piece fit into the bigger web of policies and laws within the state that could down the road really be harmful to the citizens?
right.
And and that was one when I saw that House Bill 1531 drop earlier in the session, which for people watching, that bill was passed with an emergency clause, so it took effect upon signing. I believe it was April 21, and it basically gives the state broad authority over health and medical mandates. So if they wanted to do a mask mandate statewide, they can push this out throughout the entire state. So let's say you live in a conservative county in Eastern Washington, and your county health board is, maybe last time they didn't do mask mandates when King County and some of the other ones did. They chose not to. Well, this new state law would force them to comply with the state's mandate. Um, so that's something that people really needed to understand about that law, giving just this broad authority. And it's not necessarily just COVID vaccines. It could be a number of different medical type of mandates. And then we saw last week the West Coast Alliance, which
Mhm.
was no surprise. Were you surprised by that?
Not at all. No,
Yeah.
not at all. I think it was waiting. They had that one in the pipe. They just wanted to roll it out as soon as Trump did something that gave them a reason for it. I mean, yeah. What is the other one? The West Coast Economic Pact or whatever. There's another one that sort of ties the economies together of these same states. I mean, they've done this before.
Yes.
Or
They did
yeah,
something
so
during COVID with Inslee
yeah,
and Newsom, and then whoever was governor of Oregon at the time.
yeah.
But they like to do that. And I was before I did my live stream on Thursday, I was just kind of looking to see what other maybe Democrat states were doing with this. And the Democrats in Connecticut are wanting to join the West Coast Alliance or do something like a Northeast Alliance. Um, New York's governor filed an emergency order uh, for the state over the COVID vaccine. So they're definitely, now all of these emergency orders and whatever you're hearing, they're not vaccine mandates. Nobody's forcing mandates, at least not that I've heard of yet. They're putting in place the framework to be able to do this. And with the new guidelines at the CDC say that you can, it's based on personal choice and it's not recommended for healthy adults, right? Like we're not having a COVID crisis. Why would our doctors tell us to get a COVID shot with our flu shot? Well, I don't get a flu shot anyway, but um, And then the standing order that came on Thursday, which was just like the next piece of the puzzle. And to me, my alarms go off. And I know you put out a video yesterday as well. I'd love to hear, like, as you see all of these things happening, what are your thoughts?
I mean, well, my first thought is, yeah, this makes sense, right? I mean, we've been watching this sort of occur, and then as we've watched it in our generation occur, then we look backward through the law as we've researched it and seen where these things have been set up in the past and how they've been exploited. And I mean, it makes sense that these would be natural steps for people like Bob Ferguson, the legislature and its makeup now, and sort of the administrations of these deeply blue states. So my thoughts are it's just par for the course. It's sort of that next iteration in an entire campaign. And it sounds conspiracy theorist in a way, but it's not, because well, maybe it is a little bit, but it's rooted in observable occurrences from the past.
Yeah.
For the state to step in and want to build this framework so that they can impose statewide decision making over local health department decisions making and local control. I mean, that has been the MO of the state and the legislature for well over a couple decades now. And we can look back and see that as an observable fact. And it's just another step in that direction. I think there's no doubt in my mind that, yeah, they may not call this a mandate, and it isn't in and of itself. The what is it, 1531, right? Is that the one, or the standing order? But they're all there to bolster it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and to deny that fact is just to look at this on its face and say, well, it doesn't say mandate. Yeah, no, it doesn't say mandate, because that's a bad word. It's going to say everything but mandate until it gets to the point where they bring the mandate in, and by then it'll be too late.
Yep.
The way I've kind of started to look at a lot of these things, the web or the scaffolding. I don't know if you've been through SeaTac Airport lately, but it's just a wreck, right? It's a mess. It's falling apart. It doesn't run well. There's just so much. But then you go down in the baggage claim, and then there's like hallways that are cordoned off, and you can't see the construction.
It's still
work
like
that's
that. I haven't
happening.
been there since Christmas, and it was like that.
It's been like that for a long time, and in various states of this, but it's all hidden away. It's all this work that's occurring, and you can hear it, and you feel it around you, but you walk through it like nothing's going on. But these walls, these temporary walls, keep you from knowing what it is. And that's what I feel like we're seeing with things like this. They are building, they are renovating, they are going through and changing things drastically. We're going on about our daily lives, and it's right there in front of us, but we just can't see it until it's all done and they tear down the walls, and it's this brand new shiny thing that's whatever concept they've decided to come up with. And I mean, for those of like you and I and the people that we deal with on a day-to-day or on a regular basis in the legislative work, or maybe observing in politics, I think that's not unreasonable to expect that this alliance, this new law that was signed in on April 21st, and this standing order will be used inappropriately by our state, and for political purposes too. I mean, I just don't think there's any denying that anymore. But
it's really difficult to, and I don't want to like label anybody, like I was going to say normies, but people who just aren't in the weeds on this kind of stuff on a daily basis. And so, we put out this article on it, and I did a video on this yesterday, and the video was, people understood the video, I think, better than the written content. Maybe was confusing to people that don't read policy as much as I was trying to make it really, easy to understand. But I would say disbelief, disbelief and denial. Like, what you're saying isn't happening. or, there is no vaccine mandate. Okay. I didn't say there's one. You're trying to get people to wake up and see, especially since COVID, right? Like after COVID happened, you'd think that people would sort of like see this stuff and they have that, like it would click, and it does for some people it does, but for a number of people it doesn't. Do you think that I don't know really why that is. I don't know if you have any thoughts on, is it just people just don't want it to be true?
I don't know. I think we want to get on with our lives, right? I mean, I would rather go swimming or going
Yeah.
fishing or doing any number of things more enjoyable than digging through this and trying to understand it. And there's a complexity here that's very difficult. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not the smartest guy. I don't have any credentials on my name, and it's difficult for me to understand like some of this stuff. How this works, how it interrelates, and we pay attorneys thousands and thousands of dollars to decipher this stuff, and half the time they're wrong. I'm still going through a number of battles where I've had a number of attorneys give me feedback that's counterintuitive, and they're the ones that are supposed to be tasked with deciphering this stuff
Right.
at the altar of the court. And it, I think it's just purposefully hard for
Yeah.
people to really understand. And if you look at something and you engage in a task that hurts you tremendously, or you need to fix something and you can't fix it, it is it hurts you. Because you can't do anything about it. So I think it attacks your self-esteem. So the best response a lot of people take is, well, I'm just gonna move on with my life and sort of avoid thinking about it. And I don't think it's a bad thing, and that just perpetuates it because people aren't trying. But it's not a bad thing. Like I don't blame anybody for taking it that way. It's hard stuff to understand the implications of, and when you do understand it, it's terrible when you truly
Yeah, kind
understand.
of a coping mechanism.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
like you were brought up with my parenting planner, the video I made yesterday. That 13-page parenting plan. When you sit back, and I don't know if that experience was the same for you being in the family court, but when you sit back and you see this 13 sheets of single-sided paper that define your relationship with your children, like that kind of washes over you, that reality, because there's just no way you can define your relationship as a parent with your
yeah.
child, and yet here it is being distilled down in this sort of raw and incomplete form, and that's what you have to do. And the government stripping that away, you need to figure out a way to cope with that, because you can't fix it directly. Otherwise, it's otherwise you're kind of like feels a failure, perhaps.
Yeah, and with my parenting plan, and this really sort of doubled up when we had the issue with our daughter in 2021, but back in 2012, 2013, so the parenting plan, there ended up being a no contact order in the amended parenting plan that we had. And so we went through actually 3 years of litigation before we got final orders, and we had, the guardian ad litem and the therapists, and there were criminal investigations by King County, and all these different people that were coming in to our family life and coming up with a determination of how this was going to roll out, which, in my own words, how was I going to be able to protect my kids? They were going to tell me to what degree would I be able to protect my kids. Um, and that is, as a mom, as a parent, I should say, um, that is really just frightening. Just having a judge, and the judge did tell me one time, if you take your child to the therapist, I will throw you in court I will throw you in jail. I could not take my child, my 6-year-old, to a therapist for contempt. I would go to jail for contempt of court. I mean, so you and I have had, and I don't know if you that's my experience, but we've had experience with the family court system that has interfered with our ability to parent in our own way. And
Right.
so you kind of carry that along with you. And you're right. You have this document that the court has provided you, giving you the parameters of your family, really, of the structure of your family.
Yep. And for you and I, like when people enter into the family court system, that's one thing. I think it's easy for a lot of people to go, I'll never enter into the family court system, or my spouse will be reasonable. And that's an easy way to cope with it and preemptively. But with these laws, whether it's the healthcare stuff or the educational stuff or the physical and religious stuff or sort of uh, philosophical or religious stuff,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. The state of Washington is getting forced. All of the parents in the state of Washington is having a parenting plan with the state forced down their throats. That's what it looks like to me. And unless you've had that experience of getting that parenting plan, letting it wash over you and coming to the grips with the confines that that creates, and that understanding, you don't really see it until it happens. But I think
Yeah.
for us at least, and why I made that video is because I wanted people to start thinking about that Washington is that third parent. You know,
Mhm.
they are the ones on that parenting plan now that you don't see.
Yep.
They're creating that parenting plan, and they are the powerful parent with the attorneys behind them and the ability to change the parenting plan as they see fit and do all this stuff, and you don't even know it. And they operate with impunity, and I think therein lies sort of a comparison that we can take to this fight, or and I do take to this fight, is we want people to know beforehand. I think, and I because I care about the people, I want my children to be, have ability to have their kids and have their family be safe and sound and have faith in their family. And so I can speak to my experience and share it with them and show them what's going on here, because once it comes down, once that scaffolding is taken down and the walls come down and the big shiny new things the government built, people are going to get a reality check as far as what they actually are, and it's going to be a parenting plan in the form of RCWs,
Right.
um, and at political whim of these people too, driven by political ideology more than anything.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And a couple of the bills that I think of off the top of my head that I know both you and I fought aggressively. In 2022, you had Senate Bill 5883, which was the homeless youth bill.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's actually when you and I really began talking a lot, because we were both really trying to figure out, the consequences of such a policy. And just in short, for everybody that's watching, this bill allowed homeless youth to consent for really any kind of services that they might want. And the Republicans tried a number of different amendments that would require providers, whether you're talking about a doctor or a dentist or a therapist or somebody at a youth shelter or something like that, to confirm that this child is in fact homeless. And the Democrats voted down every single amendment put forward by the Republicans that would put that check into the policy. So a child can go and say that they're homeless, even if they're not. And I've lived this, so it happens. And they can get these services. And that's really scary, because the state is giving these kids just really the ability to make decisions that they're just not equipped to be making. And then the other bill is 5599, where a child, if they say they want so-called gender affirming care or abortion, they can get housing and services without their parents even being notified. There's no age requirement on this. And what I think is interesting about this, I was reading a report. I forget if I shared it with you or not, Eric, but um, there was like a Washington State Commerce report on 5599 and kind of the homeless youth report. That same year that 5599 passed, there was another bill. It was House Bill 14 something that set up the structure for more funding for homeless youth. And it
Mhm.
received almost unanimous passing. And I wondered, I'm like, why did, like, I get that you and I missed it because, we don't see every bill, but these guys voted on it. How did they not connect the dots of these two things? And then you remember the bill from, I think it was 2023, but this was in the report to allow minors to contract for their own house, to sign lease agreements for their own housing.
Oh yeah. I do remember that. I don't remember the bill, but I do remember.
I remember you testified on it.
Yep. Yep. I think I was in Hawaii, actually. I think I may have even been in the car, and I stopped on the side of the road to do it. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, if you look at this through the lens, like my sort of comparison with a parenting plan, this is basically the same thing. It's a form of parental alienation. Anytime, which for a lot of people who aren't aware, parental alienation is one of those things they put in parenting plans. They say you are not permitted to do it. In other words, you're not supposed to talk bad or undermine the other parent. And it's sort of a hard thing to prove, but they say it. But all of these things, that's what basically is occurring. The state is stepping in to alienate the parents at the whim of the children, in this case, not necessarily even at the whim of the other parent. But just if the child wants to leave, the state steps in and says, yeah, we can do what we want. But it's hard it is really hard to wrap your head around all of this because, and
Yeah.
like you said, with the normies, and that's a fair assessment. Most people, normal people, don't want to get into this stuff.
Right.
They don't want to. We don't want to think about it like that. I mean, who wants to, when you're 25 years old and you're worried about maybe buying your first house and you've had your first child and you're trying to make ends meet and you and your husband are trying to, get things moving life wise, you don't have time to necessarily dwell on the nuances of any of these laws that go through, or let alone how they affect you down the road. Very, very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so like when I hear, people have been like commenting on our posts and stuff saying kids can't, minors can't get vaccines without their parents' consent. And it's like, where do I start? Like,
Yeah. I mean,
like have a
but
seat, grab a drink. Let's talk about it.
yeah, that's our innocence, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is our innocence. We've lost it. Maybe you and I for some of this stuff, but other people haven't. They still want to believe that there's a protection or that they have a right to this stuff, and that that the people that are in charge aren't undermining that, because that's pretty
Right.
terrible. It's very hard to face. And quite frankly, it would be nice if they didn't have to. I would prefer that people didn't have to face that reality in a way, that it weren't there. But I mean, they gotta face the music here. This is the situation in the battlefield where I presented, so we have to work within it.
And if they won't face it, then they can't fight it. And that's,
Yeah,
I think, my biggest frustration is, look, you're not even willing to face reality. So we can't even bring you into the fight. And on top of that, you refuse to vote because you're not going to vote until they get rid of mail-in ballots.
yeah. Well, I think they're willing to vote. I just don't think they don't understand the effect. Maybe it's the value of the vote is not there. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I'm not super savvy on that aspect of it. And I just know from people that I talk to, when I try and engage people on a personal level about this stuff, I get about, and I'm pretty passionate, and these are just normies, like you say, but I get about a minute in, and then their face kind of goes blank, and they don't want to talk about. I mean, you can tell they're like, yeah, well, that's the way things are. That's usually how it goes. And that goes for people who are passionate about parenting, or people who are passionate about guns, people that are passionate about the mail-in ballots, people that are passionate about any number of things. Once you get about 2 minutes into the conversation, unless they're passionate about it, sort of about the laws behind it, they sort of lose track.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, an
Yeah, and I think
unfortunate reality.
especially like with the parenting one, which has been sort of like my biggest passion point just because of everything we've gone through, and I just want to wake up as many parents as possible. And you think, what's more important to you than your child? And so that would wake you up. But I think, what like we've touched on, it's a really difficult thing to process all of this. And then you have to, once you process it all, then you have to figure out, okay, what do I do with this? And how do I protect my family and my child?
Right.
And, it's like whack-a-mole, just trying to keep, the government and the world hands off your kid.
It's a lot for people to comprehend. I know
Yeah.
there's been a few moments in my life where that sort of realization washes over you, and you're like, wow, I had no idea. I had no idea at all.
Yeah.
But I think that's a testament, though, like kind of the exposure with Conservative Ladies of America uh, is uh, it's working on that. You guys are chipping away at it, and it's actually effective, I would say. And people like me who are sort of tourists in this too, still very much fighting tourists, but still tourists, getting the word out there and starting to see some effect, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but the First Lady of Florida retweeted us today.
I did see that. That was pretty awesome.
That was really awesome. And some other, like Simone Gold,
Yeah.
also retweeted us. So that was really cool. It's, better than anyone, that, I've been just hammering at this stuff for years now, and really just trying to wake people up and educate people so that they can, if you can't get in the fight, which not everybody can for one reason or another, at least be able to protect your family and figure out how you can, insulate yourselves from some of this government overreach. So it's kind of fun, when things pay off like that and you get the exposure. It's nice to see it reaching people. And I think I worry about the whole West Coast, all of these Democrat states. President Trump has been making comments about Florida elections and stuff for next year. And it's like, buddy, you've got a whole West Coast that could really use your attention. We're good here in Florida. We got this. You go, you go deal with them.
Well, he's a character, so he's got to keep his marketing tools rolling. So
Right.
if he focuses on the West Coast, I don't know what effect that will have for his overall marketing. You got to stay on brand for him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And, like those are states that, is he going to win? Are
right.
they ever going to turn to vote Republican? Probably not. Um, Another thing I wanted to talk about with you is the governor's emergency powers.
Yep.
And I did put out a blog on this morning, just trying to connect the dots for people, because I think it's such a parallel to what they're doing with the vaccines, and how you can look back to that bill in 2019 where they expanded the governor's emergency powers, and then not even a year after the bill was signed, Inslee, made an emergency proclamation, and then what had those emergency orders in place for 975 days.
Yeah, couldn't see that one coming. Like, I mean, in 2019 we didn't see it coming, but
Right. And I
mid
think even if
2020,
like,
yeah,
yeah, and even like as a legislator, I mean, you would think, well, yeah, if we have, fires or floods or Mount Rainier erupts or something, it'd be good for the governor to be able to handle that.
Yeah. Well, therein lay sort of one of the key points with legislation, and that's sort of obfuscating the truth of the matter, right?
Right.
Democrats, for all the things they do, they are extremely good at marketing and labeling these things as if they are a net positive, as if there's
Mhm.
no drawbacks to any of this stuff. And then if you vote against it or if you don't support it, you're a terrible person for 1, 2, and 3 reasons. They are
Right.
excellent at that. And so any dissent, whether it's a vote in the legislature or a testimony in committee or a dissenting vote or opinion in the committee, it stacks against the people voting against it. But it's so blatantly terrible when you really know the effect overall. But they are really good at making sure that's not apparent in the titles and the bulk of the bill and sort of how they present it to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's um, yeah, but this governor's emergency powers is a great example of that, just for that very reason, where you're saying,
Yeah.
well, of course we want our, the administration of the executive to have these abilities to make quick decisions for Washington, but they don't consider the negative impact in the fact that that could be a larger bad thing. Uh-oh.
There were no checks and balances written into that policy,
Right.
which
Just
is why they've
a blank
come
check.
back. Can you hear me?
Yep. Am I breaking up on you?
Just a little bit.
Uh-oh. It's being over here in the Central Pacific. It must be bad connection.
Well, for everybody watching, where Eric and I are about 6 hours apart. I'm on the East Coast, so it's 6:40, and he is in Hawaii, so it's 12:40. And
Yep.
probably most of the people watching are in Washington, where it's 3:40. Um, so I think it was 2022, there was a bill in the legislature because everybody realized that they needed to reform these emergency powers, because during that 2022 session, Inslee still had emergency powers. And so there was this bipartisan bill, and a lot of citizens showed up to testify on that because in Washington, we're still living under those emergency powers. And so people were really fired up, and, you had like a lot of people on deck to testify. Bill didn't end up going anywhere. And then this year, there was a bipartisan bill. I think it was Keith Wagoner from the 39th legislative district and and maybe Gildon and then some Democrats. And it was better, but when it went through committee, uh, Valdez, is that it? Javier Valdez,
Yeah.
senator, he amended it. And of course, the Democrats all adopted it, where it gave the majority basically full authority over all of it. So it was the governor and the majority party of the legislature, and they didn't really need the minority party for anything. And they honestly made it worse because the way that the bill was written, at least it gave the minority party a little bit of input in ending the powers. But so that actually, it didn't end up, it passed out of committee, but it never went to the floor for a vote. So it didn't go through the session, but it will be back in January. I think it's 54-34, if memory serves me correctly. But that is one that people are going to want to watch in January, because that will be all part of this whole framework of, the next emergency, the next crisis.
Yeah, but they labeled it very well. It's establishing a balanced legislative oversight of gubernatorial powers during a declared emergency. Now, how
And
could
that
you
goes
vote
back
against that?
to
That's
like your
perfect.
branding, their messaging. It's just like with the LGBTQ curriculum. They don't
Yeah,
call it gender junk. They call it inclusive materials.
right.
Like, who doesn't want people to be included?
You wouldn't vote against being including
Right.
people. How could you do that?
It's kind of like when you check out at at the grocery store and they say, "Would you like to donate to, the Children's Miracle Fund?"
Right.
You're like, "How do you say no?"
Yeah. Manipulative techniques.
Yeah.
It's important. Yeah. This movement that they're making for these vaccination and health alliance uh, it- framework. We won't call it a mandate because it's not a mandate. We know it's not a mandate. I may have made that mistake too on my video. I was thinking maybe I made that mistake. Um, it'll be interesting to see where it goes and if it gets people motivated. Um, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it does.
Well,
I really sorry.
I was just going to say real quick, I noticed that the Washington State Board of Health put out a post. I saw it when I was scrolling my Facebook. I don't follow them either, but it popped up in my feed. They put out a post of what is a standing order, which
They
is
better
great. If our content is making them have to respond, then that's great.
absolutely. Yeah. That's time and energy they have to spend and
Mhm.
yeah, that's very good. Well, moving into this, I've kind of I don't know if you saw the video I made after the one I made yesterday that I posted. It was sort of in alignment or sort of in addition to that. And it was and something you and I have talked about, and it was regarding sort of the vaccination certificate of exemption uh, policy for
I don't think
the
I caught
public
that one.
schools.
Tell us about it.
Um, am I still breaking up? It looks like I
No,
might be
you're good.
breaking up a bit. Okay.
Not for me.
Um, Yeah, so the certificate of exemption in the state of Washington, you need one if you don't want to get your child vaccinated according to the school schedule. So if you don't want them to get the Tdap vaccination, for instance, you have to have a certificate of exemption on file with the school for that vaccine. And when I had found out about this back in 2022, I entered into a campaign to try and get this certificate of vaccination for no other reason other than I just wanted to keep my family's health information out of reach of the public school system and the state health system, and I just don't want that stuff out there. I mean, there's been a number of security breaches in state systems and a number of problems in the state sort of IT system, and so I just don't want that stuff out there. And so it started me on this mission to try and get the certificate of exemption. Long story short, I wound up embarking on a sort of a multi-tiered campaign to get this and wound up changing a policy within the local Jefferson County Health Department where they allowed their clinicians, as is required to get your philosophical or personal exemption for the certificate of exemption, you have to have a licensed health professional sign off on it. But the Jefferson County Health Department created a policy that permitted their clinicians to sign off on certificate of exemptions. So it was one of those small campaigns that in the end actually wound up paying off. I bring that up because for people when it comes to, well, for instance, your maybe campaign with Conservative Ladies of Washington and how it's grown and evolved into Conservative Ladies of America and the good work that you guys have done. That was a campaign that started off simply testifying, and it was a very small thing at first, but now it's amazing and it's grown to this great thing. And being retweeted by the first lady of Florida and well-renowned doctors. Um, but like that, but maybe a little lesser so, my campaign is something that can be done elsewhere. People can do these small campaigns elsewhere to great effect. And while maybe I can't go and change the state laws necessarily with one single testimony, I can go to my school board or I can go to
Right.
my local health department and engage in a small campaign and actually change things. So I guess I was throwing that video out there yesterday to sort of encourage people like, you may not like this stuff and you may not be able to solve the big overarching problem overall, but you can solve a smaller problem. And then your neighbor can solve a smaller problem. And then together, that's going to exact real change in your community. Anyway, that was a sort of
Exactly.
an
Yeah.
aside. I think that.
But that's great. That's great advice, and I think that's really good encouragement, because and what I think a lot of people and myself included until I really got into this stuff, I would pay attention to like the presidential race every 4 years, but didn't have a clue what was going on locally. And locally is where it impacts you the most. And the Democrats have been really good at engaging at a local level. And that's why you've seen, in a place like Washington, where, I lived for, decades in Bothell, which was, kind of Republican, pretty balanced, I would say, just normal. And now it's far, far left. In fact, the former mayor, Josh Freed, lives down near me in Sarasota. I think he's a little bit north of me, but um, it's now you've got like these pro-Palestine people and, maybe a couple of people that aren't even citizens. And that's where, like, I believe also that is where you take back your state, is you start taking back local governments, and really getting in at that foundational level and building up to the state. A question I wanted to ask you, with your campaign that you were doing with the Jefferson County Department of Health, would that, now with House Bill 1531 being law, would you still be able to do that, or would the state law be able to would they be able to come in and override that if they wanted to?
That's a good question. I don't know, because it had nothing to do about it was about the certificate of exemption,
Okay.
and not about the vaccines themselves or how they were portrayed. But that's a good question, because I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I would have to go back and ask them if that affected their policy at all. I don't think so, because
Maybe if the state mandate, whatever the state directive was that was coming down was, everybody has to have COVID vaccine and there are no exceptions. There's no exemptions. And then so maybe if that was their order, then counties wouldn't be able to offer exemptions, maybe.
but I think at that point, then it just wouldn't matter about the exemption, because the exemptions aren't valid. Like, you can't,
Right, right,
if the state says there's no exempting, then it
right,
doesn't matter if the health department will sign it or not, or anybody will sign it, because it doesn't matter.
right.
But it would be interesting to sort of, and I haven't considered that with this new sort of landscape. But it would be interesting to know how that might play together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so convoluted. You
It's a
know,
lot.
it is. It is a lot. But
I don't
that's
even
it.
live there
No.
anymore, but I'm watching it all, and I'm still trying to put out information so people understand, and it's just a lot watching it all and trying to process it. And as someone who lived in Washington my entire life until, just over 2 years ago, it's very sad to see how far from so anti-American Washington is.
Yeah, it really is. It's like I don't want to get too negative on it, because I know it's hard to really stay positive, and going all negative isn't good. But yeah, it is sort of like coming back to a different place anymore.
Yeah.
Um, if you don't, there's a lot of people, I think, in the community where I'm at, that can't speak their mind, that don't feel comfortable going out in their community. They still value their neighbors. There's still a lot of value there, but they don't feel like who they really are is welcome where they come from, the place where they've born and bled and worked in, which is really sad for the human experience, that would happen.
Yeah.
Um, we're America, and anywhere anybody's from should never, if we're born here, we come here, we earn our way here, we do the hard work necessary to build our homes and to thrive and be a part of our communities, only to be forced to sort of withdraw internally, is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want that for people that I'm politically opposed to either, frankly.
Right.
I don't want my neighbors to feel displaced. Yes, I don't necessarily agree with them, but I still wouldn't want that to be the case. I think it's a really unfortunate place that Washington finds itself in when so many people just are not able to live comfortably, outwardly. Pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
keep on.
And it's
Keep on.
not like you can no longer it's almost impossible to be friends with people who have a different political view because they view conservatives or Republicans or, even somebody who's not really political, but they voted for Trump. And so that, just makes them this evil, horrible person that they can't even have, Thanksgiving dinner with. It's just gotten it's just crazy. It's really sad.
Yeah. But that's why we focus on the legislation, right? Because that's easier
Yeah,
to handle.
I think for both you and I, it gave us a place to focus our energy and to, I know we both agree that like going in there and testifying, we knew we weren't going to necessarily change the outcome, but if we could frustrate the process and slow it down a little bit and just bring another voice and perspective to what they were hearing, because oftentimes it would be a room full of lefties and then me and you.
Yep.
And so it was nice because we didn't have to stand alone. We kind of had each other to let everybody hate. They were hating on both of us, so it didn't feel so lonely.
Yep. I think that goes a long way for everybody's, anytime you're facing that crowd alone, very daunting. Takes a little
Exactly.
courage. I'm not saying I'm courageous or whatnot, but it's just, yeah, you have to stick yourself out there. It's tough.
You do.
And doing it with more people, having people in that room is helpful. That was part of why I kind of started to do it too, is because I wanted to support the conservative legislators who maybe felt like they were in the room alone sometimes.
Mhm.
And, because they're humans too, whether I agree with them or not a lot of times. And I think they wanted that public support. I'm sure they get tired of hearing that constant barrage of a single political direction. And maybe they get frustrated by it, or maybe even skewed by it because they're like, well, I don't have any option here. And to
Right.
sort of hear one voice of dissent to stand up amongst that crowd, I thought would be hopefully somewhat beneficial, if not by a small measure, at least by some measure. So,
Yep. Same.
I'm looking forward
Well,
to
we
this
covered
next
a lot
legislative session.
tonight
Yeah, we
or
did.
this afternoon in your world.
Yeah.
And it looks like we had a lively chat. Our leadership team, Mary Long, has been in the chat chatting with everybody. So shout out to Mary. She's amazing. Thanks, Mary. And
Thank
I
you,
think I
Mary.
saw Leslie in there as well. Thank you for taking the time today to do this. I want to let you go about your afternoon and get some rest and relaxation and recharge before the week ahead. But I know that there are a lot of people in Washington who are very grateful for the things that you do, the testimonies you've done, and just, putting this stuff out there for other people to understand. So thank you for that.
Very welcome. I'm happy to do it. It's a privilege to have the opportunity to do it, and to do it alongside such great champions like you and Mary and Leslie and all the other people too. So it really is an American privilege that we have, and we should all be using it as much as possible.
Amen. Agree with you there. Well, have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us live, please do be sure to share this with other people in Washington so they know what's going on. If you're catching the replay, make sure that you are subscribing wherever you're watching the video. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.